Welcome to another edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast for Week 5. Robbie Rhodes here with you, along with Mark Willoughby and Harris Beal, coming to you with another week talking Lion football, getting excited for another football game between your Lions and the welcoming in the Tarleton State Texans into Strawberry Stadium this Saturday afternoon. And our special guest this week for our special guest segment brought to you by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula. You can go online and check their inventory out for new and pre-owned vehicles at gatewayford.net. And as always, Gateway gives the deals. Byron Anderson is our guest today. He is the voice of the Texans. He calls for the radio for Tarleton State University. And pleasure to join with us today. Byron, thanks for making some time for us. It really means a lot to us that you're here tonight.
Yeah, glad to help out some fellow radio guys, radio podcast guys.
Yeah, there you go. A little bit of both. So Tarleton having a great start to this 2023 season. I think that was to be expected, just kind of reading and listening to some of the stuff coming out of y'all's camp coming into the year. And you guys have already played one Southland team so far this season, playing McNeese earlier this season. Another big win, and then obviously everybody plays that FBS game, which Tarleton did some good things against Texas Tech, but we all know how those games go. Just talk about the season so far for Tarleton State and what you've seen out of them through the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, pretty much right where we hope we'd be. Like you said, 3-1 is about as good as you can hope. You can dream for 4-0 against a team like Texas Tech, but that's probably not going to happen, especially when they're start of the season top 24 team. And I think they're going to continue to get better. Got off to a slow start. We've seen how good Oregon was, and you go to Wyoming, that's a tough loss. But yeah, for us, it's right where we want to be. 3-1. There's definitely some things that could have gone better, but there's always things that could have gone worse. We have suffered through a couple of injuries, especially at the wide receiver position. So we're trying to get past that, hoping we can get everything right as we move closer to more conference play. But yeah, I think kind of right where we thought we would be here, or hoped we would be at this time. And if I were to list some complaints, the only thing that I would complain about is maybe we've got off to some slow starts in games and had to turn it on in the second half to get things done. I think probably last week you might have thought the differential between what we, especially after their game 2 weeks ago against UTPB, where Southwest Baptist lost 86-7. We feel like we're probably better than UTPB, but the score didn't show that this last week as we beat them by 14. And is a win, right, guys? But still, in college football, there are ways that people expect you to win when it's, whether you're playing an FBS team or you're playing a Division II team. So the bottom line is eventually people won't worry about that score from last week. We're 3-1, and that's kind of where we want to be.
Absolutely. I think you guys, you have some familiarity for Lion fans that's been following the Lions for a long time. Todd Whitten is the head coach for Tarleton State. He spent time at Sam Houston State for years, had a lot of success there with the Bearcats, was the offensive coordinator at Lamar for a little while. You also have Scott Stoker on the staff, who was the head coach at Northwestern State for a long time, another guy who had a ton of success in the Southland Conference as a head coach. And then he also was at Sam Houston State as a defensive coordinator for some time. So some familiarity there. Talk about what Coach Whitten has brought to this program and getting it to where it is today.
This is his third time around officially at Tarleton State. He was here in the mid-'90s, came back in the early 2000s, and then in 2016 he has come back. He's actually one win away from 100 here at Tarleton State.
Oh, wow.
If we were to somehow pull off a victory this weekend, that would be his 100th at Tarleton State. But yeah, he's the winningest coach in Tarleton football history. He surpassed W.J. Wisdom, who the gymnasium at Tarleton State is named after. He coached football and basketball, but he's the winningest coach at Tarleton State University, known for offense. I think a little bit different this year is he brought in an offensive coordinator. This is the first year he has not called his own plays. Mason Miller, who coached under him in 2016, went on to Nevada, Washington State with Mike Leach, and then was the O-line coach at Mississippi State with Mike Leach before Coach Leach passed last year. So that's probably the biggest different thing. But what has Todd brought? I mean, the most successful seasons we've had here at Tarleton State University, 2018 and 2019, are really the springboard for not just how successful we've been in football the last couple of years, but probably the move from Division II to Division I. 2 undefeated seasons. One of those seasons, I'm going to forever say that if it wasn't for 7 inches of snow at halftime and the longest scoring drive in the history of NCAA football at any level, 29 plays by Minnesota Mankato. They declared a snow emergency everywhere else. Can you tell I'm still a little bothered by it? But yeah, those are some of the best teams that we've had, and really I think those 2 years were the biggest thing that happened that started really. We wanted to go Division I for a number of years. Those games, and then the addition of not just Coach Witten, but Dr. James Hurley, our new president, that came in 2019. Those are the 2 things that spurred us on. But as far as what Todd means to the football program, I mean, really, he is the football program. He is when I talk to student athletes about him, the things that they say over and over again are just consistency, a strong message, and not just about football, about how to live lives. We've got, while the Division I thing is great, one of the coolest things is we're getting to see student athletes from football leave not just with a championship or with being able to say they played the Division I level against TCU and teams like Texas Tech, but also they're having not just graduating, but graduating with a master's degree. You know what I mean? And so we've had a lot of those. The GPA is really high in this move. We've one of just a handful of teams that have had a winning record in the transition from Division II to Division I. But I think the thing that they're proud of the most of is the GPA that they've had during that time around, I think it was 2.86 last year, somewhere around that area, which is the football team really good. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers. Yeah. I try to keep up. I don't always do a good job. I do a better job on the numbers on the field, but it's just been, he's been a steady force that has been positive since he returned in 2016.
All right, Mark, we'll go ahead with a question for you first, talking about Tarleton State and Southeastern this weekend.
Well, you also mentioned Mason Miller, your offensive coordinator. We're familiar with him as well here. He was a running backs coach and O-line coach here under Hal Mumme back in 03 and 04, us old-timers. So we're very familiar with him as well, and he's done a great job with your offense. The thing I want to talk about is you guys made that decision to jump to FCS from Division II to Division I, and you guys made the Division I investment. Stevensville, about the same size as Hammond, about 20,000 people, and not the easiest place to get to. I realize that, and also, size of school similar to Southeastern. So, but you guys have stepped up. I know your stadium seats about 24,000, I think, and you've averaged about 21 through your first 2 home games. Talk about that investment, the buy-in from your community, and what has led to that, and what do you think is the impetus behind that?
Well, I can tell you, I've been behind the scenes in a lot of those meetings for what the impetus was for moving to Division I, and it was really just increasing the profile of the school overall. You know what I mean? We want Tarleton State University to be one of the number 1 regional universities in the United States. We've had all kinds of great numbers. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal had an article that came out. We were I think number 4 overall for students that had come in, and when they had left, they did essentially some surveys, and our ratings for how the students enjoyed their time here at Tarleton State was 4 out of all the schools that they surveyed. So there's a lot of good things, but the impetus behind that was to raise the profile, and make Tarleton State. Just kind of let the secret out for what Tarleton State is. We've kind of called it one of the best kept secrets in Texas for a long time, and we wanted to share it more. And what better way to do that? The athletics people say this all the time, is the front porch of every university. And so, I was when we started making those changes. I'm also an associate athletic director here at Tarleton State. When we started making those changes, a lot of things we looked into we talked about, when you move to Division One, it does increase your profile. It is going to, all ships are going to rise with the tide, and it was hard to get that across to a lot of people. But that really is what has been happening, and it's been so fun to watch. As far as making the investment for football specifically, that goes to a couple of people. Our vice president of intercollegiate athletics, Lon Reisman, pushed for the right things, and our president, Dr. Hurley, has said yes to a number of those. And it's not just Dr. Hurley. I mean, you can go all the way up to Chancellor Sharp at the Texas A&M level. They have supported us greatly, and really without them, a lot of this stuff doesn't get done. The state of Texas, it's just been really fun to watch. People come and they see what's here at Tarleton State University, and they get excited about it. And the bottom line, guys, we could talk about all these things that have happened, but probably just like where you guys are, there's just a lot of good people here. You know what I mean? And when there's a lot of good people working and working together, it makes a big difference. People see that, and that's where it is. But yeah, the overall idea to do that, it's fun to say, hey, we get to play Division One, but really when you're at the Division Two level, with everything that's changing, you're really going to start swimming, I think, upstream if you're not careful and you're not making the move to Division One, because there's so many things breaking out really up high at these other levels, and we think we've done a good job of kind of negotiating those things. And one of the things we wanted to do was reclassify to Division One, and I think to this point at least it's been a success.
Absolutely. Here, Harris, go ahead with your question.
Describe the culture when you were D2 to now. Have you seen a significant difference, like student involvement, community involvement? Was it overnight, like an overnight change in culture in Stevensville?
Yeah, I think I think probably a lot of people might say it was an overnight change. It certainly has not been, for those of us that have been working behind the scenes, but it is something that we've slowly but surely seen. Last year and this year specifically, I can tell you that the buy-in from the students has increased. You see those numbers that we have the last couple of games, and even last year with attendance, we don't get to those numbers without those students coming out. And student sections that used to, I don't want to say that they certainly weren't empty, right? But 500, 1,000 students. Now you're looking at 5,000 to 10,000 students. You know what I mean? And it just awesome. makes a huge difference. It makes the environment better. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's overnight. It does at the football games. It does feel totally different at times. You know what I mean? But once again, it's a lot of people that have put in a lot of hard work to see that change come. But as far as the difference between Division Two and Division One, I would just say it's the overall mindset. And I was a Division Two baseball player way back, like you talked about, Mark. And my last year was 2002. I graduated in 2003. So Division Two to me it's not necessarily a bad word. I think sometimes around here with the move, it can be one. Division Two did a lot of great things for goofballs like me that didn't get off to a great start from high school. It gave me a second opportunity to play a sport and get my college degree. But yeah, I think when you talk about a Division One mindset, right? It's just trying to do things the best way you can, whether it be in the classroom, at the stadium, in practice, wherever you are. It's just not taking any excuses for cutting things short or taking a shortcut, right? It's going the whole distance and walking the whole mile, and make sure you're doing it right. And the best way you can, make it work.
You
Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, you talk about I want to talk about your league a little bit. You make the jump to D1, you join the WAC. You kind of have I guess a handshake agreement with the ASUN that develops, but there's been a lot of moving and shaking with the WAC and teams coming and going. Talk about what you guys. I mean, obviously, you guys are really regional in a good position. I feel like with teams like Sam Houston, SFA right down the road. Abilene's got to be what? Maybe how far is Abilene from Stevensonville? Probably an hour and a half or so, or
Yeah,
less.
from Stephenville, it's about an hour
Yeah,
from here. That has been a rival for us in years before. You know, even when we were in the Lone Star Conference before they made the jump, that was our
right.
biggest rival.
Did you think that them moving to the Southland and D1 and then Commerce, on the road to doing that, did that kind of, I know y'all are your own entity, and I feel like that y'all are doing things well above a lot of people, but did that help with your fans to say like, hey, the folks around us, the longstanding rivals we had made that jump? Talk about that a little bit and just talk about where you see the conference you guys are in going and what y'all see it looks like on the landscape wise today.
Yeah, I think for sure. There were talks about doing this in the early 2000s and we never put everything together. But looking back, I think when it happened at the perfect time for us, if that makes sense. Did Abilene Christian and some of those other schools? I will say we made the jump before Texas A&M Commerce. I do know that.
Right, that's true.
But yeah, Abilene, and then seeing Sam Houston, SFA. I don't know. Those schools weren't rivals, but they were, they were certainly ones that are in our region that we saw. And, you go and you see what they do and you go, hey, we can do that. You know what I mean? That's something that can get done here. It's going to take some work, but it's something that can get done here. So, yeah, I would say, that definitely had something to do with it. I think especially ACU because, we were rivals with them for so long. Yeah, that's pretty much I'm trying to think of other examples that I could give, but yeah, those other schools movie definitely an inspiration. And then and the other thing too is when schools that are close that you have, you can go and pick somebody's brain, because we're not, even though we may be enemies on the field, we're not enemies, off the court and stuff like that. We want to help each other. And so picking those people's brains and figuring out, hey, we might have done this a little bit different. It's all, it's all a little bit different, but there are things that you can learn.
Awesome. And talk about your league a little bit that you're in, and where you see that going.
Yeah, so we have for the last couple of years had an agreement with the ASUN and the WAC, a little short on some of the numbers, both of the schools and both of the conferences. So this year came together for the United Athletic Conference and had a great kickoff to that back in August when we met up at Texas Live and had media day there. There's a lot of really good traditional FCS, schools there, Central Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Eastern Kentucky,
Sure.
SFA. There's a lot of really good schools in those brackets, and we're excited about some of these other schools that will come in. UTRGV has great resources, and I think they're going to start in 2025. As far as what the conference can be, I think first off, it can be a really good FCS conference. You know what I mean, to start off with, because you got a lot of really good schools there. I think they have intentions to do maybe a little bit more than that, but that can be the first step there. Yeah, I don't know. I like we have Oliver Luck, that is the head of the conference for us.
Wow.
And so that's really good. He's done a lot of different good things, whether it be at West Virginia or with the XFL or with the NCAA itself. It's been good to have him as kind of a guiding light for us. But yeah, I mean, if I were to sit here and tell you what I would imagine it could be, I think eventually we want to be an FBS conference. I don't know how far down the road that is because I'm just a radio guy that doubles every once in a while as a associate AD that does some stuff behind the scenes. But I think that would probably be the goal in the end is to be part of an FBS conference. Now, whether that's now or 10 years down the year, I don't get to decide that. But, I think if you're just wanting goals, that would probably be the goal.
That's a great goal. Mark, anything further?
Well, no, the ambition is obvious and it's showing results, and we see that here, and I think around the country, people are seeing what's happening at Tarleton, and you guys, people are taking notice. Real quick, how do you see the game coming up on Saturday? I know you guys are off to a good start. You talked about 3-1. Over here, not so good, 0-4. Tough schedule coming out of the blocks, but we know this is a big game here in Hammond. How do you guys see it over in Stephenville?
Well, I would think that we probably would be favorites to start things out. Now that doesn't mean anything once you get on the field, but that's probably the start of things for us. I mean, it's going to be really important on the road in a new environment. This is the first time these two teams have ever played each other, my understanding. So, it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be a tough place to play. Anytime you go somewhere new, there's little intricacies to learn, but the key for us is going to be getting off to a good start, right? And we haven't been able to do that in any of the games really thus far this season. And that's something that in all of our coaches' shows and, the interviews that we've talked about, Todd Whitten has brought that up time and time again. We have to get off to a better start because you can't come back every single week and win these games. Last week, we didn't get off to we led most of the game, so that was a little bit different. But, against some Division I schools, we came back on McNeese. We came back on North Alabama. I don't know that we're going to be able to do that all season. So getting off to a good start is going to be huge. We have had at times defensively had some struggles stopping the run. Offensively, if we run the ball well, we usually play pretty well. Todd has always liked to play action off the run. That's where he builds his offense. And we've seen the same thing with Mason Miller calling the plays. Obviously, there's going to be influences, right, from what Todd has done on Mason. But, yeah, we've got to get off to a better start. And then just, last week specifically, it seemed like it was, one step forward, two steps back with, penalties and mistakes and turnovers. We have had multiple turnovers, against McNeese and against Southwest Baptist, and we somehow won the game. You know what I mean? Whether it be on special teams or just our quarterback who struggled at times with interceptions. You can't turn over the ball all season and win these games. We have a really good squad, and we need to play smart. And if they hold on to the ball, play smart, and get off to a better start, I think we could win a lot of games the rest of the year, and I would think that if we could do things right, just like any team, we'd have a chance to win. I apologize. I go deep into diving in with you guys, but I'm just getting into some of the stuff for the game this week. So my apologies.
No, it's been great.
We'd love to hear.
I appreciate it. Tarleton is, if you take out the FBS game in their first three games minus Texas Tech, they're averaging 43.6 points a game. So they have offense. You can see it there. Byron Anderson, pleasure to join us today. He's a radio voice of the Tarleton State Texans. He will be in Strawberry Stadium Saturday afternoon to call the game for Tarleton State and your Southeastern Lions. His interview is brought to you by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula. Byron, thank you so much for joining us. Safe travels to Hammond this week, and we'll look forward to getting to catch up with you before the game on Saturday. But we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us.
You bet, guys. It was fun. You'll have a great one, and good luck to you on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Byron.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Byron. He'll jump off, and we'll continue on tonight with our podcast talking about this one between these two teams, Southeastern and Tarleton State. The Lions coming in 0-4, obviously, and we'll
hey, Robbie, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll pick it up. So let's take a quick timeout. We'll come right back after this.
All right, welcome back. It's now time for our preview segment as we preview the game this week against Tarleton State and wrap up last week's game against HCU, Houston Christian University. This segment is brought to you by LionUpFans.com. If you want to chat about the Lions and check out the latest and greatest going on with Southeastern athletics, you can join all the fans and all of Lion Nation on LionUpFans.com to leave your input and talk about Lion football and all athletics going on through the course of the year. It's LionUpFans.com.
And don't be shy.
We're back, guys. Here, Alan Waddell jumping on, joining us now. Happy to have us. Byron Anderson, the voice of the Tarleton Texans, was nice enough to spend some time with us in that last segment. Did a great job, kind of breaking down. And guys, look, I don't think Lion fans really know. If anybody makes a trip to Tarleton in 2024, they're going to see it firsthand. I've done some reading. I know Alan showed me some great stuff. Mark has as well. This place has made an investment in the success of their football program and athletics in general, making that Division I jump. And when I think I know Houston Christian just beat us, but we had a team. If you go to Houston Christian to watch that program and see where they are making the jump, they started football, but they kind of jumped in with like one toe in the water. Tarleton State just dove in, and they invested a ton of money into already a foundation of football in the Division II level for a long time, and they just exploded it. And you heard Byron said they want to go to FBS. I don't know about the whole league. He said the whole league's kind of thinking about it, which I think to some extent, SFA and others are thinking that way as well, but they want to go FBS. Tarleton, I don't, and Mark can and Alan and you guys can give me your thoughts on that, but I don't see Tarleton State in the FBS by 2030. I mean, in the FCS by 2030. We'll just see what happens. No one knows what the landscape's going to look like, but Mark, we'll start with you on just your take with what Byron said and where that all goes from here.
Well, obviously, it all starts with administrative buy-in and also community buy-in. They have it in Stephenville, and they have it at Tarleton State University, and they have it in spades. And they had a vision, they had a plan. He talked about initially had this plan back in the early 2000s. A lot of that had to do with getting into the Southland Conference. The Southland Conference, commissioners kind of fought that back in 10, 12 years ago. State Division II really weren't that successful until Todd Whitten came back for his third go around. And then all of a sudden they took a meteoric rise. They were ranked in the top 5 every year up until they moved up to FCS with some deep playoff runs. But the community's on board. They've expanded their stadium from about 10,000 to it holds about 24, 25,000 now. And they're putting 2021 in there. And as Byron mentioned, 5 to 10,000 students for their first 2 home games. That's unheard of. I mean, you don't see those numbers, in a lot of FBS schools. And so, they have the ambition to go to the FBS. They have the financial commitment to do it and the vision. And if they keep drawing those kind of numbers and they have success, it won't be long before somebody, either Conference USA or maybe even the Sun Belt says, let's look west and go to Tarleton and bring those guys in. So, and they're not just good in football. They're good in basketball as well and other sports. So they're doing it right. No question about it.
Harris, your take from the interview real quick, and then we'll dive into these games with Alan and Alan. I'll let Alan talk about investing in sports and all that good stuff. But Harris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the 5 to 10,000 students is really eye-opening. And being Stephenville, Texas, Mark mentioned it's kind of out in no man's land. You're not near a big city within reasonable driving distance, hour and a half to Dallas. So what that says to me is that they figure out a way to keep students there and keep students engaged, and they keep students coming to the games. They're giving them a reason to want to go to the games, and I think moving up to the FCS was a good move for them. It brings more excitement to their community, more excitement to their campus, and it keeps the students in Stephenville on the weekends, something that Southeastern struggled with for a number of years now. So whatever they've done to do that, I think that's something that Southeastern probably needs to look into, just to try to keep. I mean, 5 to 10,000 students is a huge advantage when it comes to Southland Conference playing, let alone any football game. So that would be all. I wish we would have asked them about the band. Not sure what their band looks like, but still a huge 5 to 10,000 students is unbelievable.
If you're drawing 20,000 people, you got to have a big band because a lot of that's going to be band parents, as you know. And anytime you have a big band, Northwestern State, they draw well every year with their record, and they have 350 band members. So, got to think the Tarleton, Texas band's pretty strong.
SFA too. So
yeah.
I know you weren't on the interview, Alan, but just I know you've been studying Tarleton from a distance as well. I mean, your thoughts on what they're doing over there?
Well, look, hey, they've kind of come out of nowhere a little bit into the FCS world. They're 4th in the nation in attendance, at this point, and, the teams they're behind are like Montana and Montana State, who obviously have, huge facilities, and they're actually drawing more than the Bison right now, so they're doing something right over there in Stephenville. And I know we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but they got a good football team. I mean, they've come out the gate strong. They're 3-1. Their only losses to Texas Tech. They're scoring a lot of points. It's going to be certainly a tough challenge, but this is a matchup I like. I like this the ability to take on Charleston here, and then we're going to go over there next year and see. This is a game that's kind of geographically. I'm not saying it's real close, but it's not real far either. So I like this matchup and looking forward to see what Charlton's all about. I tell you, they have an awesome social media presence. If you're on Twitter and just want to, or X, whatever they call it now, if you want to get on there and kind of check out Charlton football, they do some pretty cool things. They have the lights like we have that we were displayed this past Saturday. The flashing LED lights or whatever they did a really cool drone video before their home game to show that off. But yeah, look, really excited to play this game on Saturday against a program that I think is on the rise.
Well, you talk about community involvement and people coming to the games. I don't think there's any complaints from us or anybody in the athletic department about what we saw in Strawberry Stadium this past Saturday night. The presence of the student body, the presence of the fans on the home side, even the fans that that weren't students on the I guess that would be the east side of the stadium. I thought it was about as good as it gets. So you have the suites in the end zones now that the athletic department's built up, the tents, which I think make the stadium really kind of have some like coziness to it. They were totally filled. Hammond America came out on Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, really. The conference championship from last year's banner was risen. It was just a really good night. Obviously, what happened on the field wasn't very good. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Mark, back to you. Hammond showed up for the Lions on Saturday night, and that's a great thing. And you got to try to find a way to harness that for the next 4 home games that we're going to have the rest of the year.
Yeah, we've talked about that for years. What does it take not only to build it, but to sustain it? It's several years in a row of playoff football here in Hammond America, 3 out of the last 4, and really, during the COVID year, that was like a playoff season with Southern Illinois. So almost like 4 straight successful seasons back to back to back. So you start off the season 0-3 on the road, your first games in late September, and you show up and, it's not a packed house, but you got a packed student body, you got a packed home side, you got packed cabana tents, packed, club upstairs. And it's just a great environment. Tailgate's really good. And we go out after the game to eat afterwards, and it's green and gold everywhere. I can't remember the last time I've seen that many people in restaurants, especially on a night LSU played and just finished playing on TV. I didn't see purple and gold anywhere. I saw a lot of green and gold, a lot of Southeastern paraphernalia and shirts, and that made our hearts feel good after a rough night of football. But I think the buy-in is there. I think we just got to find a way to dig down, sustain it. You got to put a good product on the field. But I think Dr. Wainwright, we talked about that a little bit last week. He gets it. I think people sense that, and I think he'll be visible in the community. I think you'll start to see that grow from the ground up with his involvement in athletics. Just trying to grow the whole university as a whole. So he sees the import of it, and I'm very encouraged. Not real encouraged with what we saw Saturday night on the field, but very encouraged with what I'm seeing off the field.
Here's your thoughts on the game, Dad. I know you were out there doing some stuff with the Dukes and everything else. It was awesome out there with you guys.
Yeah, it was a great tailgating experience. A lot of fans, a lot of students, and to kind of piggyback on what Mark said is that when LSU has an SEC home game, typically that's bad. At the same time as Southeastern, typically that's bad news for Southeastern and Southeastern atmosphere. But that was not the case on Saturday night. I mean, like y'all said, the stands were full. There was a full student section, and winning conference championships helps. And then when you come back the first game of the year, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of build up for that first home game. And so it was a great atmosphere. It's going to be a tough matchup this coming week, but a chance for the Lions to get in the win column and to get the season off on on a good track at least. Coming up.
I'm gonna give it to Alan for just a second, but I think one of the things is Hammond and Tangipahoa Parish, Southern Tangipahoa Parish, really the whole parish, but there is a really strong growth in the parish of young families, I would say, in that 25 to 40-year-old threshold. And look, I think that the landscape of going to games has changed dramatically in the last 15 years. It's a lot harder to just pick up and go to Baton Rouge on a Saturday like it used to be, even for students. You know what I'm saying? It's just a lot easier. And I think people are just more willing to stay at home. And you see a lot of young families. people that I know that are Lion graduates, Southeastern graduates, but also support LSU. You look at their social media and stuff, but they're bringing the family out. They're bringing the family. They certainly got their eye on what's going on in Baton Rouge, but they want to keep their eye on what's going on in Hammond too. And they bring their family out for the day in Hammond. The weather's nice. So that's something that I think that Southeastern has done a pretty good job so far and will continue to do and needs to try to keep getting better at is grabbing that demographic of people in the Tangipahoa and the surrounding area community to get them out. Alan, your thoughts on just the game day Saturday and how it all went, and what's your thoughts about where we're going with that in the future?
Well, I think some of the popularity, you got to give credit to Coach Selfo. I mean, not only what we've done on the field, but man, he has become like a figurehead in the community. I mean, everybody knows
Hero.
Frank. I mean, everybody knows him. I mean, he's at every cooking competition, judging, whatever. He's everywhere. I mean, he's really exactly what we need, and that's why we were so excited about signing him to that 7-year deal. That we wanted to have him here for the long haul. Talking with him before after these games. I mean, obviously, I don't think any of us expected to be sitting here 0-4, himself included, the coaching staff, and he's still confident he can get this thing turned around and finish this thing strong and still make a run at this. I mean, I still get that vibe out of there, but I think a lot of the popularity of Coach Selfo has really helped the popularity of the football program here in Hammond. And I'm with Mark. We couldn't believe it. We went to 2 different places trying to get in. They had long lines to eat. And I mean, it was Southeastern stuff everywhere. I mean, it was green and gold. It was families. It was students. I mean, it was great. It was probably as good a community involvement I had seen in a long, long time about Southeastern football. And I think that's why it's a little disappointing that we've come out to the start that we have because, it's like every time we get this snowball kind of rolling downhill, you don't want to stop it. You want to keep it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And hopefully we can get that turned around with a victory this week against a good team, and then go to UIW, and if you can knock those guys off, and then listen, this football team, we're going to talk about it more here. I mean, they're very capable. We could win the last 7. I mean, got to win 1 before you can win 7, but you got to get the first victory out the way. But I don't think anybody's shutting the season down by any means.
All right, let's dive into the game. Mark, your thoughts on this one that took place Saturday night. Lions fell. In kind of let's just call a spade a spade. It was a dominating performance by Houston Christian. They beat the Lions 34-19 in Strawberry Stadium. Both sides of the ball dominated the Lions, and from start to finish. Your thoughts on the game, Mark?
We've, I think in the community and just the community writ large has, pretty much beat this football team up over this football game on Saturday night. I think it's almost water under the bridge now. And let's face it, just weren't prepared to play. And I think there's no other way to put it. And I know, Alan talked about, Frank Selfo. He is an outstanding football coach. This is an outstanding staff. We all believe in them. They have skins on the wall. They are a very good staff. They will get this team turned around. But for whatever reason, Saturday night, and I know you're coming back from a long trip and out in the Northwest in Washington, at Eastern Washington, and you're 0-3, and you're looking at this. And we talked about a get right game last week, and the team that got right was Houston Christian. They're looking at it the same way, and they came out with a chip on their shoulder, and they came out and they hit us in the mouth. They hit us in the mouth early. I think we were a little bit stunned throughout the game, and I think we tried some things and tinkered around here and there. Next thing you know, you're down 2 scores. Now you start to chase a little bit. You start to press, and they just kept putting the gas down. And it's just one of those days that got away from us. Again, this is a team that lost 66-7, the week before. But is that who they really were? It's a new head coach. It's a new staff. Players are trying to buy in in their ball club. But when you look at them, they have good football players. They have good skill players. They're good up front. They're physical. They run well, and they got a transfer quarterback who happened to be here last spring and also early in the fall before he transferred to HCU. And he played like a veteran starting quarterback in the Sun Belt Conference and led them to a win. So, I think we can overanalyze it a little bit too much. Bottom line is this team's got to get back on track, and it starts this week with Tarleton. But just a tough night all the way around, no other way to put it.
Harris, your thoughts on the game Saturday between the Lions and the Huskies?
Yeah, obviously not the start, a first home game to have in conference play. They go 0-1 to the team that picked last in the conference. You come into the season with high expectations. Your expectations are to repeat as conference champions, and then you drop the first one in conference. So now your back's against the wall. But like Mark said, water on the bridge. That game's behind us. I thought we got out physicaled on the line of scrimmage of the ball. We have a great offensive line coach, AJ Hop, and this offensive line was supposed to be the anchor of this offense. And you giving up 4 sacks and 10 plus QB hits is not how you win a football game, especially when you're trying to figure out the quarterback position. I thought Eli Sawyer played well, 20 of 29, and he moved the ball down the field. But I still think that there's no true identity on the offense, with the offense, and I think that Southeastern's still trying to figure that out. But I think this is a good matchup against Tarleton State this week. I think this is another. It's got to be another get right game. You gotta go out expecting to win because that's all you have to. That's all you can do in order to make the playoffs at this point. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think the Southeastern Louisiana University Lions are gonna bounce back.
Alan, go ahead.
Well, look, all of us have watched a lot of football, and the teams that are good can run the ball and they can stop the run. And Saturday that didn't happen. I think we only ran the ball 10 times. Could not run the football at all. I think we had 40 yards rushing, something like that. And they rushed for 250 yards. So I don't care who you're playing. I don't care what level of football it is. If you give up 250 and you rush for 40, you're going to lose. And that's what happened, in this game on Saturday. Look, if we'd have went out there and turned the ball over 4 or 5 times, I mean, obviously we wouldn't be happy, but, you kind of almost swallow that. I mean, they whipped us. Let's just call it like it is. I mean, this was not a fluke. They beat us. They were the better team on Saturday. Now, are they the better team? I don't know. On Saturday they were. I thought their quarterback played outstanding. They made plays at the skill position plays. And what was disappointing to me is, we had a great night punting the football. Austin pinned them inside the 5, I think, twice. We never could keep them down there. They just would just hand it off, and they were getting 4 and 5 yards a carry. And that's very disappointing. We have better players than that. We have, experienced players. We have older players to not be able to stop the run. And then on the other side of the football, not be able to run the football. And now, did we get past happy because we fell behind so early? I mean, early in the first half, we're down 3 scores. And we got it all the way back to a 1-score game and got the ball back with a chance to win. With a chance to take the lead. And we didn't do that. And that's 2 weeks in a row that we've got the ball with a chance to take the lead late in the game and didn't do it. So look, there's a lot to figure out. Talking to Coach Selfo, he thinks it's real close. He thinks we're like really close to, kind of, getting it right. But the problem is we're running out of season. The aspirations of this program is to make the playoffs, to win a conference championship. Well, call it like it is. If you lose another conference game, you're out. If you lose another game, you're out of the playoff hunt unless you win the conference. So I'm just saying, like, from here on out, we keep saying we got to figure some things out. Well, we're running out of season. We're 4 games behind. We're 100% behind the 8 ball, and we got to figure out a way to get the first victory and then try to start stacking some here in the second half of this season.
Yeah, I think that if you win out and you finish 7-4, even with the HCU loss, you're going to at least have a piece of this. I think you're going to at least have a piece of the Southland Conference Trophy. You'd have beat UIW. I think UIW will beat HCU at the end of the year. You don't know how the Huskies are going to keep going, but I think
I'm telling you, they played good, Robbie. I mean,
they really did.
They played good.
I'll give you my quick opinion on HCU. They were kind of remind me of us back in 2012. Ron Roberts' first year. We got beat 70-0 that year, if you remember, by Sam Houston State. UAB crushed us. South Dakota State beat us down here at home. UT Martin, Missouri. I mean, we come out of the gate, we're 0-3 and reeling. I mean, and Ron Roberts is second guessing whether he should have came here or not, and McNeese comes to town ranked, and you have that epic performance. You always talk about Monta Mueller and, the fake punt and, that being the play that turned the program around. But, that team got a win. Could this win this week be that type of win for HCU? I don't know. You look at them, they've got good skill players. They're good at the quarterback position. They're physical on the offensive line. They got 2 running backs that run hard. I thought they defended us well. They were good up front and gave our offensive line a ton of problems. And I think a lot of that is, again, I think some of that's just incontinuity on our part, moving guys around. And trying to bounce John Allen from center to guard, and you got guys playing in and out of positions they played last year. I just think there's some communication issues going on there. But make no mistake, they got after us, and they pushed us around a little bit, and they beat us off the edge, and just hit us in the mouth. So if they can do that, come in here and do that against us, and we have good players. Don't make no mistake about it. This team has good football players, and they're certainly going to be in the hunt the rest of the way. Can they beat UIW? I don't know, but you feel pretty good about those guys lining up against anybody else in the league.
Yeah, look, that wasn't a fluke. I mean,
no, I don't think so at all.
They beat us. Yeah,
I think back to the UIW game. What 2019? We threw like 5 interceptions and they beat us.
Yeah,
this game had a totally different. This had a totally different feel. I mean, they just beat us. I mean that happens sometimes. And I said that on the radio show with Coach Selfo this week. As much as we want to beat our guys up and beat our staff up for, hey, we weren't ready to play, sometimes you got to look across the way and tip your hat and say, hey, they played really well. I mean, they came in here, they had basically no penalties, didn't turn the ball over. Their quarterback threw some really good balls in some tight windows, and they dominated up front. I mean, so, hey, if we play 10 times, are they going to beat us 10 times? Probably not. We probably beat them 7 or maybe 8 times out of 10, but they beat us that night, and they beat us good.
And I agree with that, Alan. But I think the concerning part, if you're a Southeastern fan, supporter, anybody that watches this team on a regular basis, is that we just didn't match the intensity, and that can happen. You're 0-3, and you're coming off a West Coast swing, and you're probably thinking you can just roll out there and win this game, but you got hit in the mouth early and just didn't respond. We did a little bit. We got back to 24-19.
I think, Mark, we thought this was Central Connecticut.
Yeah, and they're not. They ain't even close. I can tell you, physically, they're not close. And we've known HCU's always had good players. I mean, even with Vic Shealy, Zappi played there. They've had good players in the past. They've had all conference players, guys that were conference defensive players of the year, and good skill players. And they're in Houston. I mean, you're going to have good talent. And Braxton Harris is coming here, and I think he's finally starting to figure out what he has, and he got him in the right positions. He had him prepared to play. Now, I don't. Again, I go back and, hopefully, we're going to try something new here a little bit later on. We're going to grind a little bit of film. Hopefully we can do that tonight, but, and show some film, kind of show some reasons why we struggled. I think there were some opportunities we missed offensively with how they were playing us. We never really picked up on it. We struggled, again, picking up just some simple stunts inside on the offensive line, and defensively, we didn't cover, and we didn't get off blocks up front. And so there's a lot of things that happened during the course of this game that I feel like were just us not being ready to play, combined with them just being physical and attacking us.
We got to find some playmakers on both sides of the ball, guys that consistently step up. And, this is my theory, and there's no excuses in these games. Go ahead, Alan, if you had something.
No, I was going to say, I think you're right, Robbie.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody making game-changing plays.
And I think
we're not creating turnovers. We're not creating negative plays. We're not creating a lot of explosives offensively. And, I think on the defensive side of the football, we've got to attack more. I think that we, listen, the reality is we lost 5 in a row. I mean, go back to last year in the playoffs to Stanford. I mean, in all 5 of those games, we've given up over 500 yards offense. Mark, am I correct on that?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
We've given up 500 yards on offense.
Giving up 540 yards a game in the last 5.
And the bottom line is we have better players than allow that to happen. And not 2 FBSs, a quarterfinal FCS team, Eastern one. I mean, there's been some good competition in there again. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I think we have to start attacking more on defense. I mean, I don't know if that means pressuring. I don't know what that means. But, we got to figure out a way to start making some game-changing plays.
Alan, we talked about that, off the air, during the week after the game. And, look, and again, this is just me theorizing. This is my opinion. Great defensive football teams fall in a couple of categories. One, you've got guys that have better personnel across the board, like a Georgia, Alabama. They're going to recruit the best player at every position. They can go out and play base defense with great players and just win every matchup, and they're going to dominate. And North Dakota State's kind of like that, and FCS as well. And then you've got teams that are good because, they have a good scheme and they know what to take away, kind of what HCU did on Saturday. They took away what we did best. And when you do that, you give up something. So you have to be able to mix and match and decide what are you going to take away the run here. I think the other night, I don't know that we really tried to take any one thing away. It's almost like you try to defend the whole field. And when you do that, you leave yourself exposed everywhere. And then they were able to get on us and run the football. We had a lot of 5-man boxes. those soft shell coverages on the back end. I know one time they split us down the middle. We had two wide safeties. Linebacker didn't get any depth. Do a little play action, hit us over the middle. We had that opportunity a couple of times during the game that would have been like leaving the bank vault open at Fort Knox, and we just didn't see it and didn't take advantage of it. And then we ended up losing yardage, getting sacked. And, there's just a lot of things we didn't take advantage of when you go back and watch the film. I know it's going to make the coaching staff pull their hair out and made a big difference in this football game. But, again, it's just this team's got to find an identity on defense. And, you go back really the last 3 or 4 years, it's just kind of been the same thing every year. And that's over different coordinators. So it's hard to say it depending on the staff, but
Yeah, I mean, look, another thing here, and I think we talked about this a little bit off the air, is like the Lions have lost 5 very impactful players to this new portal world. Jack Henderson. And these guys they didn't just transfer and leave your team. You're seeing how good they are because of the impacts they're making on FBS, Group of 5, Power 5 teams. I mean, Jack Henderson's making plays at Minnesota. Zy Alexander's making big plays and making big interceptions at LSU. Bryce Cage is gone. Gage Laverdine is leading one of the leading receivers in the country in FBS football at Miami of Ohio. And
none
Dom
of those.
is up.
Dom is. I was going to say Dom's probably the biggest loss of
Yeah,
all
he's
so
in
far.
Central Michigan. So Harris, I mean, that's got to be. I mean, that has to hinder you. And look, those guys are all recruited, and like you can go out and try to get guys in the portal yourself, but you were kind of stacking guys, and then those guys are all underclassmen. Those guys are all sophomores and juniors that are leaving. I guess Dom was a senior, but those.
Oh, he had another year.
Yeah, so the juniors, like you got to fall back to younger players after that in some of these cases to go make plays because we're young at the wide receiver position. You can tell, obviously Massey's out and hopefully get him back soon, but Harris, we're just young at wide receiver, and I think it's showing right now.
Yeah, and it to go back to Alan's point, we got to find some guys to step up and be a playmaker. I think DiMaggio is doing the best he can, being the young receiver that he is, and he's making some big plays. He had a nice catch in the corner of the end zone, great throw by Eli Sawyer. So they are getting there. They're just immature on the field. But I think with playing time, kind of like this offensive line last year, a lot of these guys got to play because of injuries. These guys at the receiver position are getting to play because of some injuries. So I think you'll see their growth and their development as you go on through the season. But the problem is that you're 0-4, and if you wait on that development, then then it's too late for a run at the playoffs.
And Harris, you've been saying this all year. We got to get Bauer Sharp more involved. I mean, look, there's certain guys that we have that have the ability to be game breakers, and he's one of those guys. I mean, right now they just put out, they ranked the top 5 players at every position by Pro Football Focus and FCS Football, and Bauer Sharp's 3rd in the country, and that's on limited touches. I mean, this guy is a difference maker, and I went to practice last week and saw a lot of different things that to get him involved, but for some reason it just didn't play out that way in the game. But he's a guy that is a matchup problem for everybody we play. And I know the coaching staff is working really hard. We're not going to give anything away, to get him involved and on the offensive side of the football.
Greg Stevens' defense, they did try to target him a couple of times. In addition, on Saturday, that a couple hookups over the middle. I think they were in zone coverage, or they're in zone coverage. We're running man coverage. We're running zone type plays, and they broke a play up. But Bauer's got to touch the ball. We talked about it. I don't know what's the right number of touches. I don't know, but he only touched it 3 times on Saturday. Is that enough? I don't think so.
No.
Harlan Dixon touched the ball 3 times. One of them was a fumble recovery in the end zone. Then he had 2 other carries. So that was the only 2 times he touched the football. Rodeo Graham got it 7. But, you just got to find a way. And I know games take on a life of their own. I know we can sit back and beat up a offense coordinator, a game plan, and what happens is the game starts and all of a sudden you're in the play you're in, and you try to look at matchups based on who's on the field at the time, who's injured, who's available, and you call a play accordingly. But at some point you got to run the football with your running backs, direct runs, more than 10 times. I think we had 16 runs counting wide receivers, and then quarterbacks minus scrambling. We had sacks and scrambles. So I think we had 26 carries total in a college football game. That's not a way to sustain winning, especially what we've done here in the past. I know last year we've run the ball upwards of 50 times. I know the clock's different now, but uh, we ran it more at Eastern Washington. We did try to run the football. We ran it pretty well there, but you just got to strike a little bit better balance, and then that should open some stuff up downfield. But Darius Lewis, I think, has got a chance to be one of those weapons. We've seen Jayla DiMaggio, as you guys have pointed out, and a guy that I think's got a chance to be because he can really run is Mike Williams. Now he played the other night, just didn't get involved for whatever reason. Not a lot of I don't know if he had any targets the other night. He may still be trying to figure out route running and all that because there's a lot of things that we don't understand as fans, and we're not at practice every day or in the meeting rooms. Some of those are adjustments or option routes. So are they running the right route? Um, are they seeing the same things as the quarterback see? They run it to the right depth, and then the offensive line's got to protect. Let's face it, Eli Sawyer got hit every other drop back the other night. Even on the touchdown to Jacob Logan, he got blasted. So you got to protect the quarterback. And if you can't protect the quarterback and he can't go to the second and third read, I don't care how many weapons you have. You're not going to be successful.
All right, guys. Well, let's rush it and move on. Lions did fall to HCU last Saturday, but they're moving on to this week's game against Charleston State, the Texans. We'll just go around and give a little quick synopsis on this game. Mark, we'll start with you. Just talk about the Texans and what they're going to bring to the table this weekend.
Well, it's a good football team. We talked about it with Byron Anderson. Todd Whitten, head coach, we're familiar with him at Sam Houston State. Offensive guy. He's he's in his third go around at Tarleton. They're going to bring a good offensive football team. They have a transfer quarterback. Trying to pull up their stats here real quick, but he's from Utah Tech, the quarterback, and his name is Victor Gabalis, a Washington State transfer to Utah Tech, then found his way to Tarleton. He's 72 out of 129, 56%, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, does turn the ball over. He's thrown 8 interceptions. I think that's probably the one thing that I think they want to get corrected, but they have great wide receivers. I mean, they're, they got a big 6'6" kid who can really go get it. Benjamin Omiyebu has got 32 catches on the year. It's more possession type receiver, but they spread the ball around. And they have a really good running back by the name of Darrell Kelly. Not a big guy, but he's 288 yards on the year. They like to run the football, and they just eat up a lot of yards. They just score a lot of points. 52 against McNeese, and then another 51 or 2 against North Alabama in a game they came from behind to win. Defensively, they're talented. It's kind of one of those defenses that can really make you pay, make some mistakes, but yet they'll give up some big plays. You can run the ball on them. I think sometimes they're maybe not gap sound, but they're very talented. So they can look good at times and do enough to disrupt you in the backfield. So we're going to have to get a hat on a hat this week, because if not, it's going to be a long night. They're big up front, and they'll send some pressure.
Tyrone Nix is their defensive coordinator. The second time he has coached against the Lions. He was a defensive coordinator for Houston Nutt and Ole Miss when the Lions played the Rebels in 2009. Had a lot of stints there. Was at South Carolina, been a lot of places. He's also got Scott Stoker coaching with him a little bit on defense. Guy that has a lot of tendencies to bring a lot of pressure. Alan, what do the Lions have to do to get a win this week against Tarleton State?
Well, talking to Coach Selfo at his radio show, he said that he thinks Tarleton might have the best offensive line that we're going to play this year. Maybe obviously behind Mississippi State, but other than that, I mean, they're really talented. So we're going to have to, be creative to get some pressure on the quarterback. Mark just mentioned that, their quarterback is a very good player, but he will turn the ball over. So, I think we're going to have to create some turnovers. And one thing we got to do, and we did this the first couple of weeks, is we really played well in the first half. And I thought that was what was frustrating this past week, is we didn't play well in the first half. We were behind, and it felt like we were chasing the whole game. I don't think you want to be in a position where you're chasing these guys, because it's going to be hard to get stops consistently against a really good offense. We need to get in front of them, and then play our game where we don't have to drop back and throw the ball every play. And, we can be a little more balanced running the football and throwing it. But I do expect us to play really well this week. I know that there's too many guys in this locker room that have tasted success here and know what it looks like to be okay with what's going on. And does that mean we're going to win? I don't know. But I do think we're going to play better. I do think this is a very good football team coming in here, and an opportunity to, to kind of turn things around. Because, you play well this week, you play well against UIW, you are right back in the middle of this. There's no doubt about it. I don't care if we started 0-4. But it's got to start sometime, and hopefully it's going to start this weekend.
Harris, your thoughts on how the Lions get a win?
Yeah, I think HCU was a wake-up call. I think they're gonna have a good week of practice this week, and I think they come more prepared than last week, and I think they have a good game. I think they know what they need to do to get better. I think they know what they have to work on. I think they saw what their weaknesses were because they were put on full display last week. So I think they get right this week during practice, and I expect a good game from the Lions and a good hopefully a good home crowd.
Well, the Lions are going to kick it off 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon at Strawberry Stadium against Charleston State. Network airtime is at 2:30. The game can also be seen on ESPN Plus as always. But get out there, take part in the tailgate. Lions will be on the road the following week before coming back for homecoming. So, it's going to be another nice day in Hammond, we're looking like. So make it happen and be out there for the Lions this Saturday as they take on Charleston State in a big game. Real quickly, guys, got a few seconds left here. We'll go around for your final thoughts. Mark, start with you. Your final thoughts on everything tonight and what you're looking forward to.
Well, appreciate Byron Anderson jumping on with us from Tarleton State. Great insight on their program, no question about it. Looking forward to having them in town this week. And again, Southeastern's got a rebound. You got no choice. I mean, you're 0-4 and backs against the wall. This is a chance to come out fighting. I know this is a team that is capable. They have talent. It's a well-coached football team, and I think Saturday night really got to them. I think they get it now, and we'll see them play well this Saturday night.
Harris?
Yeah, 3 o'clock kickoff. Friendship Circle. Be out there. Come out and support the Lions. They need your support as they get this first W. So please come out 3 o'clock. The Lions are gonna look to get this season off to a better track.
Alan?
Yeah, guys, glad to be with you guys again here tonight on our podcast. And I'll just reiterate the fact that, there's a lot of people that really care about what's going on right now in Southeastern football. I know that you guys see it, everywhere we go in the community, people are wanting to stop us and talk to us about the Lions. I mean, I walked into Brady's to pick up lunch on Sunday, and I got stopped by a couple people I didn't even know. And they're like, man, what happened last night? And that's a good thing. Not that we lost, but it's a good thing that people are paying attention to what's going on. So, hopefully that can continue to grow. Robbie mentioned, I know one of our sponsors is LionUpFans. If you want to be a part of that, join us at LionUpFans.com. I know there's a lot of good content on there as well. A lot of people that talk about Southeastern. And, look, hey, just trying to get this thing turned around. And I know that we have the right staff and the right players for the job. None of us wanted to be 0-4. None of us expected us to be 0-4. None of the coaches staff, none of the players. But it is what it is, and that's where we are. So now all you can do is try to move on from here, get a big victory, and let's try to get on a run and start stacking some W's.
That's it. That's our preview and recap segment of the show today, brought to you by LionUpFans.com. Go check out everything the LionUp Fans has to offer, talking about Southeastern athletics from any sport. Your favorite sport, doesn't matter. There's always a tab to check it out and talk with Lion fans from all over the world about what's going on at Southeastern. LionUpFans.com. Guys, thanks again for being with us. We'll be back next Tuesday. Another special guest as we get closer to another game. Hopefully, we're talking next week. The Lions are 1-4, looking to get back in Southland Conference play and turn this season around. Thanks again for everybody for listening and tuning in with us today. For Mark Willoughby, Harris Beal, and Alan Waddell, I'm Robbie Rhodes saying good night, and we'll see you next week as we talk more about Lion athletics and Lion football. Line up, everybody. We'll see
Line
you
up, fans.